you're probably doing exactly what you were told to do. You cut back on sugar, you avoid soda, you choose drinks that sound healthy, clean, even protective, and yet your blood sugar still refuses to cooperate. That's where the real problem begins, because when something keeps getting worse while you believe you're doing everything right, the mistake is usually hidden in plain sight. What most people don't realize is that some of the drinks labeled as healthy don't just raise blood sugar, they can push it up faster and more quietly than foods you already know to avoid, especially as your body gets older and insulin response slows down. This is rarely discussed, not because it's unimportant, but because it doesn't fit into simple advice, and the damage doesn't happen immediately, it builds silently day after day behind habits you trust. And if you've ever wondered why your numbers stay high despite your effort, or why your body feels off, even when you think you're being careful, there's a strong chance the issue isn't what you're eating, but what you're drinking without question. Most people focus almost all their attention on food, and that makes sense. You're told to cut carbs, reduce sugar, watch portions, read labels. So you do all of that, and you feel like you're being careful. But there's one category most people barely question at all: what you drink. And that's where the imbalance quietly begins. Here's the key difference that rarely gets explained clearly. Solid food has to be chewed, broken down, mixed with digestive enzymes, and slowly processed before glucose enters your bloodstream. That process creates a natural delay. Liquids don't follow those rules. When sugar, even natural sugar, is dissolved in liquid, it bypasses much of that delay and moves into the bloodstream far faster than most people expect. Think about it this way. When you eat an apple, you chew it. Your stomach works, and fiber slows everything down. When you drink apple juice, your body doesn't need to do much at all. The sugar is already free. Within minutes, glucose levels begin to rise, and you don't feel it happening. No warning, no discomfort, just numbers climbing quietly in the background. This difference becomes much more serious as you get older. With age, insulin response naturally slows. Your pancreas doesn't react as quickly, and your cells don't absorb glucose as efficiently. That means when sugar enters the bloodstream too fast, your body struggles to keep up. Liquids deliver glucose at a speed your system was never designed to handle, especially after 60. Many people notice this pattern without realizing what it means. They check their blood sugar after a meal and feel confused. I didn't eat much. I avoided dessert. I followed the rules. What they forget to count is the drink they had alongside the meal or earlier in the day. And because drinks don't feel heavy or filling, they rarely get blamed. There's also a psychological trap at work. Drinks don't trigger the same caution as food. You might hesitate before eating a cookie, but you won't think twice about a glass of something labeled fresh, natural, or healthy. That sense of safety lowers your guard, and repetition turns it into a habit. One drink becomes daily. Daily becomes long-term. And long-term exposure is where the damage accumulates. From a metabolic standpoint, this matters because blood sugar spikes are not just about how high the number goes, but how fast it gets there. Rapid spikes create more stress on blood vessels, nerves, and insulin-producing cells. Studies consistently show that liquid sugars raise blood glucose faster and higher than the same amount of sugar eaten in solid form. Speed is the hidden variable most people never consider. And here's the part that surprises many people. You don't need large amounts for this to happen. Even moderate portions, when consumed as liquids, can produce disproportionate effects, especially in the morning or on an empty stomach when insulin sensitivity is already reduced in older adults. The timing amplifies the impact, turning what seems like a small choice into a metabolic shock. This is why so many people feel like their condition is getting worse for no reason. In reality, it's not random. It's cumulative. Each liquid sugar exposure adds a small strain. One day doesn't matter much, but months and years do. And because the effect is silent, it often goes unnoticed until blood sugar becomes difficult to control. So when you hear someone say, "It's not what you eat, it's what you drink," that's not an exaggeration. It's a reflection of how the body processes liquids differently, faster, more aggressively, and with less opportunity for regulation. Food gives your body time. Drinks take that time away. But understanding this difference alone still isn't enough, because there's another layer to this problem, one that makes certain drinks far more dangerous than others, even when they look harmless. And that's where most people get trapped without realizing it. Once you understand why liquid sugar behaves differently from solid food, the next question becomes unavoidable. If drinks enter the bloodstream faster, then which drinks are quietly doing the most damage? And this is where the real confusion starts, because the most problematic ones are often the same drinks people choose to feel safer. The first group is fruit juice. It sounds clean, natural, even responsible. Many people replace soda with juice and feel proud of that decision, but metabolically, juice tells a very different story. When fruit is juice, the fiber that slows glucose absorption is almost completely removed. What remains is concentrated sugar, already dissolved, already free. From your body's perspective, there's very little difference between a glass of orange juice and a sweetened drink when it comes to blood sugar speed. A single glass can contain the sugar of several pieces of fruit consumed in under a minute. Studies show that fruit juice can raise blood glucose levels nearly as fast as soda, especially in older adults. And because it doesn't feel indulgent, it's often consumed daily, sometimes multiple times a day, quietly reinforcing the same spike pattern over and over again. Then there are smoothies, which many people assume are the better option. Blending feels gentler than juicing, and technically, the fiber is still there. But texture matters. When fruit is blended into a liquid, the mechanical breakdown changes how quickly glucose is absorbed. You're no longer chewing, you're drinking calories. And most people underestimate portion size. A smoothie often contains far more fruit than you would ever eat whole in one sitting. From a blood sugar standpoint, this creates a double effect: faster absorption combined with higher total sugar. Research shows that blended fruits produce a sharper glucose response than whole fruits, even when fiber content is similar. The body reacts not just to what you consume, but how it's delivered. And liquids deliver sugar efficiently, sometimes too efficiently. Vegetable juices create a different kind of trap. People turn to them when they want to be extra careful. Green Juice's Detox blends vegetable-based drinks. They look harmless. But not all vegetables are low in sugar or starch. Carrots, beets, and certain root vegetables can significantly raise blood glucose when juiced. And once again, the liquid form removes the natural braking system of digestion. Timing makes this even worse. Drinking vegetable juice on an empty stomach or in the morning can cause an unexpected spike, particularly in people with reduced insulin sensitivity. The intention is good. The result often isn't. And because vegetables carry a healthy label, the connection is rarely made. Sports drinks and electrolyte beverages introduce another layer of confusion. These products were designed for intense physical activity when muscles rapidly absorb glucose. But many older adults consume them during normal daily routines, walking, light chores, or even sitting. In those situations, the sugar has nowhere to go. It stays in the bloodstream. Even low-calorie or light versions can be misleading. Some contain fast-acting sugars or sweeteners that still trigger glucose and insulin responses. The marketing focuses on hydration and recovery, but rarely addresses who actually benefits from them and who doesn't. Finally, there's the most deceptive category of all so-called functional drinks: vitamin waters flavored health drinks, beverages labeled immune energy or metabolism support. These products rely heavily on perception. Words like natural, balanced, and fortified lower your defenses, but many of these drinks contain hidden sugar syrups or combinations of sweeteners that create unpredictable blood sugar responses. What makes this category especially dangerous is trust. People don't question what they trust. They drink these beverages consistently, often believing they're supporting their health. Over time, that consistency becomes exposure. And exposure, not indulgence, is what drives long-term metabolic damage. The common thread across all these drinks is not that they're inherently bad, but that they're misunderstood. They deliver sugar quickly, quietly, and repeatedly, often without triggering the caution that solid food does. And when something becomes routine, it stops being noticed. This is why blood sugar issues often feel mysterious. You're not doing anything extreme. You're not binging. You're just repeating small choices that add up in the background. And because the rise is silent, the connection is easy to miss. But recognizing these drink categories is still only part of the picture, because there's a scenario where the risk multiplies when these drinks become daily habits and the body stops compensating altogether. And that's where the real danger begins. Once you can clearly see which drinks quietly push blood sugar higher, the most dangerous scenario begins to reveal itself. Not when someone drinks these beverages occasionally, but when they consume them daily with complete confidence that they're doing the right thing. This is where control starts slipping, not suddenly but steadily. This pattern shows up again and again. Someone replaces soda with juice, switches dessert for a smoothie, adds a healthy drink in the morning and an electrolyte drink in the afternoon. None of these choices feel reckless. In fact, they feel responsible. And that sense of correctness is exactly what makes the damage harder to detect. Over time, the body adapts, but not in a good way. Repeated glucose spikes train the system to expect rapid sugar delivery. Insulin works harder, longer, and less efficiently. Cells become less responsive. Morning blood sugar starts creeping up even before food enters the picture. After meals, numbers stay elevated longer than they used to. And despite cutting back on solid carbs, the trend continues. This is the point where frustration sets in. You look at your habits and think, I'm not doing anything wrong. And technically, you're not doing anything extreme. But metabolically, repetition matters more than intensity. Research consistently shows that frequent moderate spikes can be just as damaging as occasional large ones, especially in older adults whose recovery window is already narrowed. What makes this phase especially dangerous is how quiet it is. There's no immediate pain, no dramatic symptom, just subtle signals that are easy to ignore. A bit more fatigue after meals, thirst that seems unrelated, brain fog that comes and goes. These aren't alarms, they're whispers. And most people don't listen until the numbers force them to. Morning glucose is often the first red flag. Elevated fasting levels suggest that the liver is releasing excess glucose overnight, a sign that insulin signaling has been disrupted. This is frequently blamed on dinner, but drinks consumed throughout the previous day, especially liquid sugars, play a major role. The body never fully resets. Post-meal readings tell a similar story. Even when meals are smaller, blood sugar climbs higher and stays elevated longer. This extended exposure increases oxidative stress, damages blood vessels, and accelerates insulin resistance. Over months and years, this pattern quietly increases the risk of complications, cardiovascular strain, nerve damage, kidney stress, long before a formal diagnosis worsens. And yet many people double down on the same habits, believing consistency will eventually pay off. They trust labels. They trust routines. They trust advice that never accounted for age-related metabolic changes. This isn't ignorance, it's misplaced trust. The turning point comes when you shift from asking, what should I avoid, to what should I question? Not all habits deserve loyalty, especially when the body's response has clearly changed. Aging alters physiology. What worked at 40 doesn't behave the same way at 60 or 70. Ignoring that reality creates a mismatch between intention and outcome. The solution doesn't require extreme restriction. It requires precision. Understanding which drinks spike blood sugar the fastest when the body's most vulnerable, and how frequency compounds the effect. Reducing exposure gives insulin space to recover. Slowing glucose entry gives cells time to respond. Small adjustments consistently applied can stabilize numbers more effectively than aggressive short-term fixes. This is why some people see improvement not by eating less, but by drinking differently. When liquid sugar exposure is reduced, morning numbers soften. Post-meal spikes become more predictable. Energy stabilizes. The system regains rhythm, not because the disease disappeared, but because the pressure was finally removed. But even this awareness has limits, because there's still one critical factor most people overlook: timing. When you drink, certain beverages can be just as important as what you drink. And understanding that timing mistake may be the final piece that explains everything you've been experiencing. Once daily habits start to wear the body down, the final warning doesn't arrive as a dramatic event. It shows up quietly in ways that are easy to dismiss. This is where many people miss their last early opportunity to correct the problem, not because the signs aren't there, but because they don't look serious enough. One of the earliest signals is persistent thirst. Not the kind that comes after exercise or heat, but a steady need to drink even when you're resting. This happens because excess glucose pulls fluid out of cells, triggering dehydration at a cellular level. You drink more, but the thirst returns. Many people assume it's just aging, dry air, or medication. In reality, it's often blood sugar speaking in a low voice. Fatigue is another common sign, especially after consuming drinks that are supposed to provide energy or hydration. You expect to feel better, but instead you feel heavy, foggy, or strangely drained. This happens when glucose floods the bloodstream but can't efficiently enter cells. Energy is present but unusable. The result is a paradox: high sugar, low energy, and it's one of the most misunderstood symptoms of metabolic imbalance. Then there's the issue of unstable readings. Blood sugar that swings unpredictably, even when meals are controlled, is not random. It's a sign that regulation has been disrupted. Liquid sugars, especially when consumed frequently, create sharp rises, followed by delayed drops. Over time, this volatility strains the system more than consistently high levels. Research shows that glucose variability itself increases oxidative stress and vascular damage independent of average glucose levels. What makes these signs especially dangerous is how normal they feel. Thirst, tiredness, and fluctuating numbers don't trigger urgency. They blend into daily life. People adapt. They drink more, rest more, adjust their routine without addressing the underlying cause. And because these symptoms develop gradually, they rarely prompt immediate change. Another subtle signal is morning stiffness and mental cloudiness. Overnight, when the body should be restoring balance, elevated glucose can interfere with deep recovery processes. Poor sleep quality, early waking, or grogginess upon waking are often linked to nighttime glucose instability. Many people blame stress or age, not realizing that what they drank the day before is still affecting them. From a physiological standpoint, these symptoms are interconnected. Chronic exposure to rapid glucose entry increases insulin demand. Over time, insulin signaling becomes less precise. The kidneys work harder to filter excess glucose. Blood vessels lose flexibility. None of this happens overnight. It unfolds quietly, reinforced by habits that feel harmless. The most concerning part is that people often respond to these signs by doubling down on the very behaviors causing them. More hydration drinks, more functional beverages, more liquids meant to fix the problem. Without realizing it, they add fuel to the fire. This is not a lack of discipline, it's a lack of accurate feedback. The solution at this stage isn't panic or restriction, it's awareness and recalibration. Recognizing that symptoms are data, not inconveniences. Reducing liquid sugar exposure often leads to noticeable changes within weeks. Thirst stabilizes, energy becomes more consistent. Morning numbers soften. These shifts aren't dramatic, but they're meaningful. They indicate that the system is regaining balance. The key is listening early. The body communicates long before it breaks down, but it doesn't shout. It whispers through patterns: how you feel after drinking something, how your energy behaves, how your numbers move across the day. Ignoring those patterns allows silent damage to continue. Responding to them creates an opening for recovery. And yet, even recognizing these warning signs still doesn't guarantee improvement, because there's one final mistake that overrides everything else: the timing of when these drinks are consumed. And understanding that timing error may explain why all your previous efforts failed, even when they seemed logical at the time. If any part of this video made you pause and rethink your daily habits, that's a good thing. It means you're paying attention, and awareness is always the first step toward control. You don't need to change everything at once. Start small. Look at what you drink today, not with guilt, but with curiosity. One adjustment at a time is often enough to reduce unnecessary strain on your blood sugar. Even simple changes can create noticeable results. Many people see steadier energy, fewer spikes, and more predictable readings just by choosing drinks more carefully and timing them better. These aren't dramatic fixes, they're sustainable ones. And sustainability is what actually protects your health long term. If you're managing blood sugar, especially as you get older, consistency matters more than perfection. What you do most days will always matter more than what you do occasionally. And the fact that you're here learning and questioning already puts you ahead of the curve. If you found this information useful, save this video so you can come back to it later, especially when you're deciding what to drink during the day. And consider subscribing to the channel. New videos are shared regularly, focused on practical evidence-based insights to help you manage blood sugar and support long-term health without confusion or extremes. You're not alone in this. The goal here isn't fear, it's clarity. And with the right knowledge, small daily choices can lead to meaningful improvements over time.